I was especially proud of our courage. You know, as I was telling you guys earlier, the membership had decided the FBI could not come and recruit because we had just discovered COINTELPRO, and we knew how they had destroyed our black organizations. And so as a policy, they were not allowed to come and recruit. And they said they were coming anyway. You know, what I loved was that even though we had these philosophical differences with the NBA, when it came time to stand up to the FBI, who had said they were coming anyway, you know, there was nothing we could do about it. NBA and NCBL both had to stand down the FBI to keep them from picking on Balsa, you know. And so, you know, our activism was particularly strong. We had a march, you know, that was like a huge march, you know, that you guys have built on. But it was so important to us that we let the world know that black law students really took a position on Baki, you know, and to help our community understand what that meant. Now, to me, the phenomenon was that what we thought was a death knell, because when Baki came down, it was the end for us. We were depressed, horrified, you know, and trying to recruit. And it was people like the Denise Cardi Bonitas and the Derek Bells and all these phenomenal law professors who sat down and said, you know, we got to hold on to Justice Stevens, you know, and see what we can get out of this because, you know, they said do not despair. You know, we're lawyers. We've got to find a way out of this, and showed us how to work through those kinds of difficult decisions that we thought were the end of us. And I think that's what I feel kind of responsible for, this disconnection between our generation and yours. Because we had phenomenal mentors, and it was just a natural kind of relationship. And somehow, and we really wanted you guys to be the law reviews. We weren't going to law reviews, and we didn't have time. You had to choose Balsa or law review. There was, you know, and no one was choosing law review. Everybody, you know, was going to Balsa, and it was just a sacrifice you made. Even those that could didn't, you know. And so when we thought we were at a point when you guys could do law review and MOOCLA and all those wonderful things, somehow I think we got disconnected and thought we didn't need you, or that you didn't need us. And, you know, it just saddens me that there's such a disconnection. Like, I mean, I know so many of the generation, the NBAs and the Jays, because they took me under their wings, you know. And who among us are taking, now I've been, you know, a student junkie. I was at Northwestern for 14 years, so I've always had people under my wing. You know, but I look at my colleagues, you know, when I'm dragging folks, you know, to the parties or whatever, you know, trying to teach them bid whist, so that doesn't die, you know, not spades, bid whist, which survived slavery and may actually die with your generation, which is amazing.
They're still playing that.
I don't know that they are, but, you know, I just see this disconnect. You know, that didn't exist, even in terms of relationships. But you guys got the big jobs. You guys can go into the firms, you know. You guys have much more success than we could ever dream. I mean, people weren't going on, you know, these on-campus interviews, they were not a reality for us. I mean, black students just weren't in that crowd. They didn't want us. It was maybe one or two. And we celebrated those that were going to the big marketing firms. But for the most part, we knew they didn't want us. You know, and now that you guys are there, somehow we thought maybe you didn't need us. You know, and it saddens me that you don't have the richness of the relationships with old school the way we did with our old school. And that's why, you know, I just feel like we've got to keep coming back, because I know you need us, even though you may not look like you do. You know, we certainly need you guys. You know, I mean, that's just the truth. And I'm so encouraged by what I see with young people now in this particular, you know, era of political campaigning. You know, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to actually save us, because they actually, you know, see things that we never thought we'd see. We never thought we'd see a Barack Obama at this stage, whether he makes it or not. I just thought I'd die and never have seen that. You know, and it's because of the youth that we can see it. And so I'm just glad we're getting together, because we're disconnected in a way that we never had. And we just need to be a part of you. And that's what I learned from Balsa. You know, really learning from my elders and, you know, trying to reach back. You know, the other thing I'll say is that I think somehow this generation thinks that the pioneer days are over. You know, because when I'm in firms and I'm recruiting, and they look around, they're like, well, I don't want to go to anybody that look like me. And I'm looking saying, oh, Lord, I told them, I said, we still be chopping cotton if, we felt like that. You know, so we've got to buck up folks to be pioneers because there's so much uncharted territory still. You know, and, the covered wagons are still here, and we got to circle those puppies. And so I just hope, because, it is a very difficult time, and history repeats itself. If you just look at what happened at the turn of the century, in the 20th century, and what's happening now, the analogies are almost perfect, and they're really scary. So I love balls. I'm glad we're together, and that was my lesson. It was really about service. Being the first woman was very, very difficult, and, I was just held to a higher standard, how I dressed, who I was talking to. I wasn't dating anybody at the time, so that was huge because I wasn't dating anybody, So they was like, well, who is she dating? Oh, she dating him. Look, she stood there talking to him for 15 minutes,
Teresa, what year?
I was 78, 79.
At school, this is the record.
Oh, American University.
I had a unique opportunity because, as I shared with some of you earlier, I was on the board 2 years in a row. The board that I was on, the first board, was an all-male board. Teresa raised some very, very good points in that the people on that board were almost heroic in terms of who they were. Lennox Hines, for one. Bob Pickett, for another. Charles Bussey, for another. Dynamic. Walter Stone, from Case Western Reserve. Now, let me tell you a little about Walter. If you look in your book, you see a newsletter, the first newsletter, and you see pictures. Walter is the one that came up with the emblem for present-day in Boston, striving to balance with the imbalanced scales. If you ever see the scales of justice, they're equal. His scales were imbalanced. And the reason they were imbalanced, he says, because our goal is striving to balance the scales. So he was the one who originated that concept of balancing the scales. We were radicalized, no doubt about it. You're talking about a generation who went into college with Vietnam. You're talking about a generation who came out of student unrest. Bob Pickett went to Kent State when they had the killing on that campus. I was involved with some very interesting activity in college. Clarence Thomas happened to be one of my classmates. Ted Wells happened to be one of my classmates. We were all in school together, Holy Cross. And we had an interesting thing. So we came out of radicalism. I mean, we really came to law school, and interesting enough, every black student was a member of Boston. You didn't have a choice. It was automatic. You were a black student, you were a member of Boston. I think this organization is vital. I think it has to remain independent. And it has to be what it started out to be. Benefit the students and the community.